It was my lucky day today. I have dreamt of this since the day I started my podcast. And actually, my guest today is someone who has really inspired me to do this podcast. I caught him on an Instagram live with Lisa Messenger, and the interview process and the conversation, and it then led me to her podcast, is really what started this for me and made me want to talk to people and learn more and realize that people want to share and are happy to share. So somebody who shares so much with our industry and has really changed a lot of the ways I think the industry runs and education, and all of the photos that our clients are bringing are from this man. So Jaye Edwards is my guest today, and I am so honored and flattered to have him on. And I think we cover so many topics that are so much more than just hair, because that is what I think he's known for, is this business model and these outrageous salons that seem like, oh my God, how are you doing this? So he walks us through beginning, middle, and the whole thing of how he got to where he is. He has 8 salons right now, an education company, product company, foil, and there's just so much. And I think sometimes we can be like, oh my God, like I have ideas that I actually don't know how to translate them into reality. So if anyone can do it, it's Jay. So yeah, I just am so grateful that I finally got to pick his brain and ask the questions I hope that we've all been wanting to know. So dive in. It was amazing, and one thing that is good, I guess, about lockdown, which we're currently in yet again, is having the time to do these and have a distraction. So I really hope that these conversations bring some joy or some positive thought or some motivation to somebody, because that's what it's doing for me. And I think that that was something that it allowed him to do today too. So dive in, me and Jay. Today is my lucky day. I'm so excited. I'm sitting down with Jaye Edwards, the one and only. How are you going? How are you feeling? What's the
I'm
latest?
doing good. A little frustrated, but I'm optimistic today.
Good. I was like, you know what? On a Sunday, I think it's not something that I would normally do and spend the time doing this sort of stuff, but I think it's really important to have things to distract us and to keep conversations maybe not about what's happening. We're both in Melbourne, we're in lockdown number 5, and to
Yeah.
just have something else and something positive is really why I actually started this podcast, was during my first lockdown experience, and it feels good to have something to keep me going right now. And I hope that I can do that for other people, give them an hour of distraction. And people love talking about themselves, I think. So hopefully
Oh my
that
God,
will be good.
I definitely do.
Well, firstly, I actually was doing a little reminiscing while I was setting up for this interview with you. And I have had notes for you and I since I started the podcast, because actually,
Really?
what started this for me was listening to you and Lisa Messenger.
No
And
way.
yes, so my last lockdown, a year and however long ago it was, I would listen to her podcast while I was going. And the only way I came onto her was from your IGTV that you did with her.
Yeah,
And I found
that's
her so
amazing.
inspiring and so motivating, and like this woman in power, and listening
Yeah.
to that podcast and then a few other ones. I'd never listened to podcasts before. So I
Yeah.
would like
I'm a
to say,
huge fan of Lisa Messenger. She's incredible. Very
yeah,
inspiring.
so you really lit this fire in me, I would say. So it's full circle having you on. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
So I think that it would be silly to assume that people wouldn't know who you are, but my audience base, because I am from Canada, is a little bit broader. So
Yeah.
although we might know some of the facts, I would love for you to give us a little intro to yourself. And I
Yeah.
always ask how you got into the hair industry, but the thing I'm most excited, I think, not only to talk about hair with you, is to talk about business, because I think
Mhm.
that's something that you're renowned for, and I can't wait for that. But give us a little bit about you.
Should I start? I'll start with my name. My name's Jaye
Okay.
Edwards. I'm the owner and founder of Edwards+Co salons. And more recently, Jaye Haircare.
Mhm.
I currently have 8 salons across 3 different states, soon to be 9 salons across 4 different states.
Oh, wow.
I started Edwards+Co 8 years ago. My first one was in Sydney, and then I expanded into Melbourne, and then I opened another in Sydney, and then I opened in Gold Coast, Byron Bay, Brisbane. I've opened another one in Sydney since. I've done a collaboration with Mecca. So I have quite a bit going on. How did I get into the hair industry? I left home when I was 15. I ran away from my parents. Ran away from the small town I grew up in, which is a town called Young. Don't go there. And I got on a train, went to Sydney, stole money from my dad's safe. I'm not sure if you ever found out.
I will now.
And I didn't have a job. I met someone online, which was so naive of me at that time, being so young. But thankfully, they were very supportive and a very good friend. And they helped me get my first job at a hair salon because I didn't know what else to do. I had no qualifications. I had no experience. I'd never worked before other than in my dad's pub at the time. And that's when I started my hairdressing apprenticeship.
Oh my God, amazing. I think it's so interesting that so many people who end up being so successful in this industry actually didn't have that innate thing that they always wanted to be a hairdresser. It's something that they've fallen into. But what I love about this industry is that there's so many avenues within it that you can take this as your foundation and now take that into product and business and all of these things that you wouldn't have maybe been able to do or known how to begin it had you not started in hair, if you just went into business and went to uni for business.
Yeah, totally. I don't think that like if I had gone to uni and started business, that I don't think my business would be any better than what it is now.
Yeah.
I think that it's better because I didn't learn a textbook business model, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, I guess just getting to the beginning of it, how did you get to opening a salon? Like, it seems your journey is very compressed, I think. Like, you got into the industry and then you were a salon owner, and that's not everybody's step. And getting that financial backing and things like that, where did that kind of come from for you, and how were you able to do that?
So initially, I finished my apprenticeship. I did the best part of it with a lady called Kathy Gilbert, an incredible colorist. I mean, a great boss as well. I stayed with her about a year after I finished my apprenticeship. So back then, my apprenticeship was 4 years. So I stayed with her for a year after. And then she decided to go and open her own space because she was a chair renter inside like a co-op hair salon.
Okay.
And I worked directly for her. So she left to open her own, and I chose to stay in the chair rent salon and rent a chair there. 6 months later, the owners had decided that they were going to retire and offered for me to buy in, which I accepted, but didn't sign any legal contracts and had nothing protecting me. So I gave them, over the course of 1 year, $50,000.
Oh my God.
And then a month later, there was no salon. So I lost all that money.
So they just shut the doors?
I found out they were shutting the doors and I left before they did.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I was 21 at that point, like nearly 22. So it was a lot to take in.
Oh my God. Yeah. Who has that money at that age anyway?
No one, right? And I had paid them like a weekly amount of money so I could like own it, right?
Oh my gosh.
So I left that place and I found a beautiful space, which is my Kipak Street salon in Sydney. And I went into overdrive. So I had 5 credit cards at that time, all amounted I probably added up to like $40,000 in credit cards. I also had a business partner for my first salon.
Okay.
So she helped put in half the money. In total, it probably cost around $120,000 to build that salon.
Oh my God. And how did you find the business partner? Like, was that somebody who...
She was actually someone who worked in the salon that I was at.
So also a hairdresser.
Yeah, they were actually working for the people that owned it.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was kind of done over a little bit as well. Anyway, so we decided, and then I'm lucky enough to have a very supportive cousin. So she gave me a little bit of money. Okay. She's been that voice in my head since I was probably like 13 that told me I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
So she's a really important person to me. Her name's Beth. So we opened the first Edwards+Co, and it was probably the hardest time of my life, even more stressful than the COVID period.
Really?
You know, we had spent an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
And
at that point, you wouldn't have known it was going to work out. Whereas now you probably have that backing of like, look what I've done. Like nothing can take me back to that. Like I've done all of this. So yeah, I get you.
When we open new salons now, I'm always very confident that they will work because I believe like with good hairdressers comes great clients, right? But 3 months into that, I actually bought out my business partner. She had a very different idea of what the business should be to what I did. And, you know, I wanted a high-end, beautiful salon that you would walk in and people would go, wow. And they wouldn't go just wow at the space. They would go, wow at what you're drinking from. They would go, wow at the flowers you have on the desk. They would go, wow at the beautiful greenery you had in the salon.
Yeah.
So everything had to be wow. But she was about cutting costs. And
Okay.
I'm not very good with cutting
I was
costs.
gonna say, I think that's the opposite of how I would describe you, from what I know.
I really suck at it.
That's
So I
funny.
kind of just said, and by that point I had trademarked Edwards+Co in my name. And I just said to her, look, I'm happy to walk away. I have nothing to lose now. Like,
Yeah.
I've done it. I just did it 6 months ago. I can do it again. So I said, I can give you all of the money back that you put in. And then you can go on your merry way. So I actually used a lending company by this point called Prosper, which is like a second-tier lending company, and I still use them today. And they lent me the money to pay her out, which I did.
Wow. So ballsy. I love this. And have you always had an eye for design and for those high-end finishes? Like, is that something that comes naturally to you that, you know, in your own house or your own life or did you have to outsource that to somebody?
You know, when I think back to when I was like 20, 21, I had like a style which has adapted and changed over the last while. And now it's a lot more refined. Like I have a very distinct taste in how I want things to look. Like everything's very minimalistic, very simple, really beautiful, like soft finishes. Like even in the salon I'm in now, it's very plain, but everything kind of is really high contrast, like the black beams, the tables are like compressed concrete sheets, then it's got a black frame around it, like things like that. And I'm always looking at like affordable materials that are hard wearing that last a long time. Because in my opinion, and I've made this mistake before, there is no point in putting a marble slab on a bench top in a fucking hair salon.
If I worked there, especially because I'm the messiest little pig ever.
I'm so messy.
Yeah.
Like within a day, you're gonna have color on it, and it might stain.
Yeah.
And you spent $20,000 on a slab of marble. Don't do that.
I remember for the salon that I worked at home, I got this amazing opportunity to go into their boutique salon in Saks Fifth Avenue. So it was like exactly that, marble. The chairs were white, and I remember walking in being like, why are you putting me in here? Like, you have to be practical. I literally looked at his name as John, the owner. I was like, did you seriously buy white chairs? I'm the only colorist that works here. It's not going to work for me. We had to get plastic things to put on all the chairs because of me. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so funny. So how did that go? That initial process, buying out your original business partner, how did you go about getting staff? Did you get staff? How do you even know where to begin with that?
So at that point in time, we're a freelance only salon. So that's how Edwards+Co started.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I had 6 people who were also my friends, who rented a chair or were on commission or however they wanted to work it.
Which is not very common here. As far as I know, when I came over, I was in for a rude awakening into the fact that it was mostly hourly rates. So that's quite unconventional already, starting off like that. Do you think that's because you started your apprenticeship, say, with that lady that was a chair renter?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, the reality is I wanted to create a beautiful space where my friends could work and we'd have a happy work environment.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to create a brand. But if I was just a freelance salon, I wouldn't have been able to scale it, especially if I was funding myself, which is why I changed the model to be partially freelance, but majority employee. Okay. And we still offer everything now. So we have chair rent, we have commission freelance, we have employee, and soon it depends, but I'm working on a booth rent salon. And I'm still unsure of that idea, and purely because why would you not just want to rent a chair inside a beautiful space where there's a team rather than being in your own booth alone? That doesn't make any sense to me right now. So
it's something that's very common not for me at home in Canada, but in North America, in America, it's huge there. And all these things go through my head too. I actually remember having this conversation in your class a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you always seem to be ahead of the curve a little bit and having something quite different to the norm within Australia. So with the salons and the design, do you have somebody in doing that to make it unique? Because they are so unique.
Yeah, no, I do them all myself. The
Okay.
only one I haven't done is Brisbane Fortitude Valley.
Oh,
I
yeah.
used a designer called Amanda Jarvis to do that one, and she was amazing and made everything so much easier. Like honestly, it was so easy. But then also I've used a builder to build my Fitzroy salon,
Okay.
and he didn't require any drawings. He was like, I'm happy just to work with you and you can tell me what you want and I'll build it for you. That was also really easy. So I guess it depends on the person that you're using to help build. I mean, Crown Street's my biggest salon and it's 430 square meters.
Wow.
And I didn't use a designer. I just, ordered my mirrors that I wanted, ordered the basins that I wanted, drew it up on a piece of paper with some pencil and showed the builder and he built it.
Oh my God, cool.
So I guess it depends how you want to work and stuff. And when in Brisbane, I had to put in a DA, like a development application. I had to change of use and all that kind of stuff. So when you do that, you kind of do have to use an interior designer, but I've been lucky enough to not have to do any DAs in most of my salons.
Because you buy them as warehouses and completely empty spaces?
I don't buy them. I wish I could.
Oh,
I just
there you
read
go.
them.
Yeah.
So I guess the thing is, if it's retail use, you don't really need to put in a DA.
Yeah.
It depends on the council and what area you're in, and there's so many loopholes around it. If you're using builders that always work with the council, all that kind of stuff.
I've always found that interesting when people rent the space, because obviously that is more the norm than not. But how do you go about, like, say you put all your basins in and you make it this whole hair salon. If you're only renting it, what do you do when you want to move? Like, how do you get do you just have the client profit and the product sales profit being what's your profit there if you're paying rent all the time?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, because if I was to buy it, even the building I'm in now, it's probably worth $6 million, which I definitely don't have.
Yeah.
So I guess you sign like a 10-year lease, like we're on a 5+5 here. And the rent here is actually really good. So yeah, you just rely on the sales of the retail and the services. And rent's just a normal cost.
That I guess you're used to having it. Something that I think when you're an employee, sometimes you don't think about, like, you feel like everything's going to them and you realize, oh, they actually have outsourcing costs that I'm
100%.
quickly learning now that I am out on my own. I'm like, oh, well, all of that money's going over there.
Yeah, I think that's like a common thing. And don't get me wrong, I don't believe it's the employee's responsibility to know any of that information. I don't believe in putting that onto them because that is the employer's responsibility because they own the salon. But for example, like my Crown Street salon is $22,000 a month to rent.
Oh my gosh.
So there are huge costs involved
space. I've
in
been in
creating big, beautiful spaces, and Brisbane costs like $500,000 to build. And that's something I
how
have to
did you
figure
go
out.
from having them in one location? So you're like, okay, Sydney's where I've started. It's quite ambitious to then be like, oh, I'm going to open it in a place where I don't live. And especially now, it's really what a situation. But was the plan to kind of stay in? How did that transition from 1 into 10?
So I was traveling to Melbourne to do clients and renting a chair in another salon. I just built a clientele through Twitter. I was doing Lara
A hair
Bingle.
clientele through Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was doing Lara Bingle's hair, now known as Lara Worthington. And I still do her hair. And I guess with her being like my A-lister client, she kind of helped build me really. So I built a hair clientele through Twitter, started traveling down for like 6 months. And then I was like, why don't I just open a salon here? And that was my second salon. So I opened one in Melbourne CBD on Punch Lane. It was a first floor office space that I converted into a hair salon. And then 6 months after that, the second floor came available. So I took that floor as well.
Oh my God, cool.
It was really cool.
You go.
No, you go.
I was going to say, is there any point where the growth is too big? Like, have you done too much too quick and had an error in that?
Yeah, of course. There's been multiple occasions where I'm like, fuck, I shouldn't have done that. And I've lost a lot of money. or have just made mistakes, you know? And I think that it's so important that we do make mistakes so that we learn, because if you're protected from making all these mistakes, you're never going to learn anything. But no mistake has ever made me go, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I have like fleeting moments at times, especially during COVID. And like a couple of weeks ago, I was having like a mental breakdown, where I was like, this is fucked. Like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm going to go broke. I'm going to end up to where I started. Which, you know, if that ever happens, it's not that bad. Like I always have my own skill to fall back on.
Exactly. You have your brain. Your brain is what did this and got you here. Yes, you have people around you helping you make those visions happen, but at the end of the day, it's your ideas.
Yeah.
Your brain doesn't.
It is hard to like think like that when you're stuck in your own head.
Totally.
You know?
Totally. Especially, I mean, I think it is important for people to know that even people who have what seems like a really extravagant life and the money to do that from all these salons, that, you know, you still feel like that. Those things don't change. Having that self-doubt is universal, I think, for everybody.
Absolutely. It's so real.
Yeah. Oh, what a wild time. So how did you go? Because I think something for me, I'm a color specialist, and who I look to when I am looking for education and things online was you and your brand. And I found your education videos easy to follow, easy to understand. Foiling is something that never, ever came naturally to me. I've been a freehand girl from the day I started on the floor in Canada, that I moved here and everybody foiled. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so lost. Like it doesn't make sense placement wise and all these things. And so you was something that came to me was all your Instagram videos, these little bite-sized videos that were so easy to understand. So how did all those concepts of education start? Because I think that's something you're most known for, really, is your education system.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two parts to our education. We have internal and external. So the internal started first, and I probably in our second, maybe third year, we started to build an internal curriculum. And at the same time, people from outside Edwards+Co were asking for us to hold classes and to educate the way we color hair. And at that time, I had Michael Kelly start with me. He was my education director for, I think, 4 years. And he was amazing. He was so good and helped me grow the education part so fast and so well. So he focused on the internal, I focused on the external. And then we started scheduling classes and people were buying tickets and we would sell out. And my mind was blown. Like, I was like, what? You all want to learn why?
Totally.
And then we just kept scheduling more classes. And then we like scheduled classes in LA, in New York, in Chicago, in San Diego, in Canada, in Toronto. And then they all sell. And I was just like, what the fuck?
Do you think that was a key to actually setting dates rather than waiting for the requests to come to you, actually putting it out there and setting them as classes with tickets, with dates, rather than waiting for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the best thing we did was just set dates. And if they sold, they sold. If they didn't, they didn't. We had a threshold of like what was profitable and what wasn't. So for an international class, if we didn't sell 15 tickets, we would cancel it. If for a domestic, if we didn't sell 10, we would cancel. But we were selling like 40 or 50.
Oh my God, amazing.
Which was amazing. And then in terms of like the online stuff, I started dating someone who was a videographer, and he was like, why don't you just film tutorials?
Yeah.
He's like, you would do great. And he because he started filming my workshops, and he was like, this is so cool. Like, no one else is doing this. Why don't you just start filming the tutorials? So we started filming them and posting them. And I guess that's when my Instagram started like getting a lot of traction. And then I developed the Edwards+Co Education website and was putting like more full-length tutorials on there, which you can purchase for like $50 for one, or like $80 for two, or $6, I don't know, whatever the prices are for three. And then that's like what I love to do now. My favorite thing is to educate and to teach, especially on a digital perspective. I just like filming tutorials, putting them on my Instagram, because that's what sells my classes.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is that a lot of those tutorials are online for free. So what's the incentive, and what do you feel like that is necessary to get people in your classes? Why do them for free when you're teaching
Yeah.
the same technique? What's the point of difference of coming to the class when I can watch it on your Instagram for free?
So I think like there are two elements to this, right? Part of me, I have a lot of people always wondering how's he opening 8 salons? Like, how's he doing that? Like, why?
Yeah.
And I think it comes from a place of judgment and then a place of curiosity for others.
Yeah.
So part of me putting these tutorials online was to show people why I have 8 salons.
Because you're actually good. Watch me color.
This is the work that I can do. And I'm not afraid for anyone to judge me for it. The other part of it was, if all of these people are investing in me and coming to my classes, then I should invest back in them. So that's why I do so much free education online. And, you know, they're not full length. They're 20-minute tutorials where I do half of the head, and then the other half, you kind of have to add up yourself, right? But if you buy a full length tutorial on the website, I do both halves, full length, you don't miss anything.
Yeah.
But people are hungry to see it in real life. Firstly, because they want to see you fuck it up. Or they
you're nodding along and I'm like, no, wait, no.
It's true though, right? People come to my, I think people like to come to my classes to see if it is as easy as what I'm making it in the videos.
Yeah.
And you know, in my classes, I do proper color corrections.
Yeah.
I do things that I can fuck up on. So I can show people how actually simple hair can be. Because I think that everyone overcomplicates it, and it's not meant to be complicated.
Yeah.
So I think by giving them that free education, they get hungry to see it in real life. So it sells my classes too. Yeah. And I mean, we just, our biggest class ever, we sold 100 tickets in Perth.
Oh, wow.
And that was amazing. Like it was such a hoot. I got such a kick out of it. I was meant to have a class today, actually, of 70 people in Melbourne. But that's postponed because of the lockdown.
Well, I've got you instead to myself.
Yeah, and the more tutorials I post online for free, the more my classes sell.
That's incredible. And is that, like you said, that's what really brought your Instagram up? Because I think something you're so known for is your Instagram platform. And I mean, it's iconic, the things that everybody is bringing in those photos. So was that look? Because I mean, really, to me, and I could be totally wrong, but that face frame, that tight, you know, these words that you use, future proofing, tip out, like everybody says that now. But to me, I learned that from watching you. Like, did that come from you? Did you learn that from someone? How did these techniques come to life? That there's
So I definitely learned it from someone. I won't take credit for that.
Yeah.
When I traveled the US and I went to Mesh Salon with Tracy Cunningham and Liz Young when she was working there. And I was lucky enough to see them both in action. And it was like, they don't use future proof. Like, future proof is the term that I created, because I've even trademarked future proof hair
I was
color.
going to say, I have that in my notes. Did anything trademarked?
But the word tip out and like words like that, I have taken from other colorists.
Yeah.
And the way they described it made sense. Like, for me, other people would call it a balayage, and it's like that. A balayage is a technique, not a look.
You don't have to tell me that. That is my number one thing of being like, balayage is freehand. Freehand is sweep. It's French. Like, that's something that I was so instilled in me because I was trained by Candy Shaw, that it's like, I actually cannot get the words out that is not what that is, you know? Like,
and like, I'm really like, I don't like it when people call a highlight a balayage. It's not fucking balayage. It's a fucking highlight you put a root shadow on.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's how we charge in Salon too. So nothing is charged as a balayage unless you balayage it.
Okay.
You have to charge as highlights if you've highlighted it. It's different work. It takes different amounts of time and a different skill.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very passionate about that.
I can feel it. I love it. Now, the shadowing is something that's so interesting. And do you think that is something that now you implement in your salon and is an extra way of gaining profit? How do you judge what you're charging to have someone come in and shadow, and what you paid to go watch someone shadow?
Oh, the shadowing in Salon?
Yeah.
So I have, the only person I've ever shadowed personally is Liz Jung, Tracy Cunningham, and Sheree Noble. in Australia. So I think it's highly, highly valuable for someone to come in and literally see someone work day to day, because it's a one-on-one experience. And they I do 5 to 6 colors in a day.
Yeah.
And then like Tracy was doing 20.
Oh my God.
And then I think Liz did 12 all in one day. And I was like, how the fuck did
America's a whole nother situation.
100%. And it's because they have so many assistants, right?
Yeah.
But
and most of them work on commission. I mean, that's what made me hustle at home. I worked on commission. If I didn't have a client, I didn't get paid. So
totally.
Yeah.
Which is so much harder to do that in Australia. Firstly, because like, I mean, there's so many reasons why.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the shadowing, like you would get, especially shadowing me in the salon, you don't just get the hair, it's the business part. It's watching me juggle the 30 phone calls I'll get during the day, the 6 clients I get, the people coming up. And I mean, my staff come up and like watch and ask questions. And we have that really safe environment at work where the client will know that anyone will come up to me and ask 101 questions. Yeah. And that's totally fine. And we are a salon where we discuss everything. So if, you know, someone gets a color in and they aren't entirely sure how to go about it, that's not because they are not skilled. It is just because they want a second opinion. Yeah. So we really encourage that in salon. So you get to see how the whole salon works with shadowing.
Yeah, I think it's so valuable, but it's something that I've only recently, not that I've thought of it, but I never knew until recently that we charge for it. Like somebody asked to come shadow me and someone's like, well, what are you charging her? And I was like, what? I have to charge her. I thought she just wanted to come and watch. She's going to help me. I don't have an assistant, so this is great for me. And they're like, no, you charge. She's there picking your brain, learning from you, watching exactly the way that you operate. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes I don't feel okay charging someone to shadow. I mean, I do charge them obviously, but it is a funny thing because they're in there, then they're kind of helping you.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah. So like, I always will have an assistant with me, so I don't need that shadow to help. And I make that really clear. I'm like, you're not here to help me. I'm here to help you. Yeah. Like I'm here to give you as much knowledge and information as possible. So no question is off limits. No matter what I'm doing, you can ask whatever you want. Yeah. And I make that really, really clear because I want them to leave thinking that they got their value worth, right? I never want a person shadowing me to leave thinking that they got gypped.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was I don't think so. But why I was saying with the free education online, because I think a lot of people would look at that and be like, well, why do it? So I think it's really cool to hear the backside and how that actually leads to your ticket sales and things.
Yeah. And I do a private class probably once a month. And like I love doing private classes because I get to go into their salon and they get to experience what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And I get so many inquiries, but obviously I can't do them all because my schedule is so full. So I mean that's really cool, and it's just nice to hang out with other hairstylists in their own environment.
Yeah, and a different space than your own. That's where your brain probably starts rolling like, oh, I never saw this before. That's something that I really like that I can implement, which is why that shadowing is important, or the classes, that's stuff that I have met a lot of salon owners that I would have never met otherwise if it weren't for me doing a class for them or with them and being like, oh my God, bosses like this exists. Like, she's amazing. I might come up. It was in Brisbane. I did one. She was the nicest lady. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's just, those things change your perspective. So moving into the next kind of phase for you is your hair care and foil and those types of things. And I am a person who has a list as long as my arm of things that I have thought of. But, or, you know, you watch Shark Tank or what, I don't know if that's as big of a show over here, but those types of shows
every day.
Okay. Those shows. And I'm like, fuck, like I had that idea. Or how do you now go from having the idea to turning it into a reality of your product line or your foils or whatever it may be?
So I'm not one to ponder. Like if I have an idea, I'm going to do it or not. It's really that simple. And from idea to doing it is not long. I would say I have an idea, and if I can't action it within a week, I'm not going to do it.
Oh, wow.
So like I get really frustrated if my team can't action something for me immediately. I'm like, how does it take 6 weeks to strategize anything? Like, what the fuck are you doing? I get so passionate about it. So the foil, I mean, in complete transparency, I was using another brand and they were using my name. And when I asked for payment, they said no. So I was not happy about that, as you can imagine. And I think that she was being extremely unfair. I wish
So
her
your
well.
name was on the foils.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I hadn't previously asked for payment because I thought it was good marketing for me as well.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where they were selling so much. It's like, my name's on that. That's like not
That's
okay
why
now.
it's selling. Yeah.
Pay me. And I'm sure that like her brand identity and mine were helping to sell it together, not just mine.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, fuck you. I'm going to do my own. And I made sure I did different sizes and all that kind of stuff. I didn't want to blatantly copy because I don't believe in that. And I do believe my sizes are better for my coloring because I work in halves now and all that kind of stuff. So it was really simple, actually. Like we just contacted a couple of aluminium foil suppliers in China, and we got some samples, and it was like done.
So you just like Google aluminum foil. I don't say aluminium, aluminum foil. Aluminum. You just literally like Google that, or that's where you have a team. Like, say I don't have a team. How do I get these?
You can go on to I mean, you can just Google it, or Alibaba is a great website to like source for suppliers in China. And then they send you a whole booklet of what they can make for you and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I guess the reality is there are a few big foil brands that contain a large majority of the market, and then those suppliers won't actually make you foil for you to sell.
They have a contract.
Their contract's too big, which is like so fine. But because I changed my sizing, I get my extra large foil from one company, and I get my medium and small foil from another company. Okay, so it's a bit like all over the place right now.
And do you think that that's really important, is having these separate little, I heard it the other day in another interview, like honeypots, like, you know, you have your foil, your product, your thing, that those are the things that make it successful for you because you have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the foil part, like I'm saving an enormous amount of money just by having my salons use my foil.
Yeah,
right?
because you're getting that at cost.
Yeah, so even if I don't retail it to other salons, I'm still saving 40 or 50 grand a year because my team's using my foil.
That's something I learned from Candy with her balayage lightener. She said, even at the end of the day, in my own salon, that's all that we use. So even if it didn't take off, it was something that was going to be profitable and practical for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And same, that goes with my products as well. Like products were a lot harder to develop. And I use a company in Sydney who then sources everything for me. And I made all my products from scratch. So the first one took like 9 months to make and cost me 80 grand.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't cheap.
And do you get a loan for that again, or are you at a point where you don't need to do that anymore? Like,
oh no, I still need to do it, but I didn't get that. I had my own money saved.
Yeah.
I did just get a new loan though, just in case everyone's wondering, to open another salon.
We love to know everything here.
Yeah. So even if my products are in Mecca, which I'm very grateful for, and that does really well.
It's amazing.
But I am on a exclusive deal with them, so other people can't stock my product unless they already had an account now.
Yeah.
Cool. That's a little limiting, but again, like even if other salons don't stock my product, I get that product at cost for my salons.
So smart.
So then my brand absorbs in all the profit from that. So that's really cool. So even if it doesn't take off, I will still carry it in my salon.
Yeah.
And with that, because my margin there's a lot of margin, I'm able to pay my staff more commission on those products because my margin is so big.
Totally. Because say in a commission base, it's like the product gets doubled, and then that's 25% maybe for the staff and 25% for you. But because you are the 50%, I get you. Yeah. Sometimes my math, but I get it. Now, something that also, while we're on the topic of product, when you have stuff in your salon you have quite a diverse range of product, and what was the incentive behind that? And also having Virtue, the first person that I heard of using that was you here in Australia. Like, where do you get these things that are more advanced, kind of like that you're bringing in and sourcing and seeing first?
I'm always on the hunt for better performing products.
Yeah.
Virtue for me is like one of the best performing products on the market.
Yeah.
And they're backed by science, and their science is quite fucking incredible.
Yeah.
I actually found out about Virtue through Liz Jung, who I flew to Australia from the US to do a class for my team.
Oh, wow.
And I started using it, and I was like, wow, this stuff's like really, really good.
Yeah.
So I got in contact with Virtue directly, and now we just buy it directly from them in the US and import it in.
Yeah.
Because we order such large quantities, and I mean by we do $100,000 at a
Wow.
time, basically. So everything is compact and our costs are lowered so that we're able to order that amount. If you're a smaller salon and you're ordering it, it's probably not as cost effective to ship it in from the US and retail it. But because we're ordering such large amounts, but I do believe that they have a what are they called? A wholesaler in Australia now soon. I believe they got one lined up. And then in terms of like the other brands, so I think I carry 7 different brands in the salon. And we're about to pick up another one, which is called Bread, which is for Afro curly textured hair. So we just make sure that we cater to every price point. And by, I don't mean to a $10 product. Our lowest product is like $22. So that's in 11 Australia. And then we just go up to Kevin Murphy, and then we go up to Shiramura, and then we have Redken as well in like some parts of Redken, which ranges from 30 to 40. And then we've got my range, which sits at like the mid-premium level. So we just make sure that we cater to every price point. We cater to different age brackets of what people might use. For example, you know, a 50-year-old woman is probably not going to buy 11 because of how it looks, right? But a 22-year-old client will buy 11 because of how it looks. So we just make sure that we are able to cater to every type of client that might walk through our door.
And do those ideas come from your brain? Like these business ideas, that's a business brain talking, being like, oh, I need to cater to the, are those things that have come to you naturally, or by having other people working with you that you pick up stuff? Like, do you have a business?
I mean, a lot of that stuff for me does come quite naturally, which I'm so grateful for. But I'm constantly thinking, what would my client want, right? So I'm a huge consumer. I'm like a deadly consumer. I go buy. I see Facebook ads and I buy. Right? They work. So you know, and my client varies from straight hair to Afro hair, from 20 to 60. So I have a very diverse clientele, and I'm always thinking, how can I make that person's experience even better? Do I cater to her and her needs? Then I get my next client in who's the polar opposite of the first one. Then I ask myself the same question. Then I put myself in their shoes. And I think that's what people have stopped doing now. And I believe that to be one of the like success factors of Edwards+Co. I'm constantly thinking about my client and what they want, no matter who they are. So I think by doing that, it's allowed me to cater to a much more diverse clientele, and they keep coming back because of it.
So cool. Love that. Has there been a moment that you thought you wouldn't come back from? Like, I think something that has been very vocal is people's maybe lack of respect for you and the business, or, you know, things like that. It's real. It's true. Like, is there stuff that you felt like so, hard done by, or something that you weren't going to come back from, or a business decision that you thought was the end of you? Or
like, I mean, the first COVID, the lockdown in Melbourne was pretty brutal, but I would say anything outside of COVID has never made me feel I might not come back from. You know, people are vocal about me and like what they think I do. But I guess the reality is my consumers don't hear that. My clients don't hear that.
They're not in the hair group. They're not in our world. That's such a good point.
You know, so I know my clients will always come back. I value my clients hugely, and they invest so much into me, but they're not following those people. They're following me. And I think that those people forget that. I forget that too at times. I definitely forget that. And I just need a gentle reminder that like my clients are my clients, And no matter what those forums say, or those people over there posting about me say, my clients aren't seeing that. You know?
Yeah, I just think when I moved here, the biggest draw for me was an Edwards+Co situation in Australia. And, you know, that brand, those are the photos that in Canada I was showing for my own hair and, you know, all those
Yeah.
things. And that in your salon, you have your own education to, you know, your stylists are at a very high caliber and level within the industry that people are wanting to work there for that. And I think it is really exciting for someone like me seeing your business model having different structures within one business. You don't always have to be on an hourly rate. Do you find that hard to manage though? Like, how do you keep track of who's on what pay structure and like, oh shit, I paid her hourly and she's a commission, or if you have that many staff? And
it's all pretty simple to keep track of. Like, I have an accounts person, obviously, so that's his job to keep track of it. But I mean, it works cohesively together. Do we have people swapping from hourly over to commission? Yes, we do all the time. Do we have people who are on commission wanting chair rent? All the time. Do we allow everyone to do it? No, we don't. It is a case-by-case basis. And, you know, people who are employed by us then want to go freelance because they realize that it has more financial freedom. And it does have more financial freedom, but it also has more financial restrictions in terms of tax, GST, products, all that kind of stuff, which they all fail to realize. Become a freelancer and then like, fuck, I didn't know all this. I'm like, exactly.
Totally. Which is what that conversation recently within the industry has been so much about, and being like that it's this thing, but there is a very large demographic of people who do not want to be freelance for that reason, and they will always want to be an hourly employed staff member because they have no they have no inkling to want to do those things of doing the business and doing the bookings and all of that. I don't think you're ever going to lose people who want an hourly rate or to be an employee.
No, I don't think that will be the case. And I think that as well, I mean, if you are on an hourly rate, there is a limit to what you can be paid. And I say that because if, say, for example, you want to be paid $100,000 a year, I don't know what the hourly rate is. For a salon, that means you would have to bring in approximately $300,000 to $350,000 a year in revenue to be able to afford that salary, which, you know, like that, if you could bring in that income, you would get paid that 100%. But that would have to be consistent. Like, you would have to consistently make that average weekly amount, whatever that might be. I think what would it be? Like 10 grand a week. No, sorry, that's wrong. Anyway, whatever the figure is, my brain's not working right now. Like
I'm
around $7,000 a week.
Pretending I'm doing that.
$7,000 a week on average a week to be able to afford that type of salary. So for it to go up from there, that means the income that you bring in would also need to go up. Or the value that you bring to the business would need to increase as well. So past that point though, if you can't increase what you bring in, then obviously you need to change the structure of which you're working at. So whether that be changing over to freelance commission, which we do 50-50 split, and that includes your assistants, the foil, all the color, includes everything you'll ever need. But then we don't have to pay PAYG, payroll tax, superannuation, all that kind of stuff. So it evens out. Or then you can go to a chair rent. But the thing is, I think salons forget that it's rent a chair. Not rent 2 chairs. Rent a chair.
Totally.
And in that one chair, you can do one client at one time. Otherwise, if you allow them to use more than one chair, then you need to charge them for more than one chair. Otherwise, it will not be profitable. And I think hairstylists and salon owners forget that part during business.
I did until I went out on my own. 100%.
So it's like there's pros and cons to each model, right? As a chair rent, you can use one chair, one client at a time. You're limited to what you can bring in. As a 50-50 split, you have no limit. You can work as many clients as you want to work. You have access to assistants. Everything's covered. It's just a clean 50-50 split. And then like as an employee, you then have a limit on what you can earn based on the amount of income that you bring into the salon. So I'm not going to pay someone $100,000 who's only bringing in $150,000 a year to the salon. That would make no sense at all.
Yeah. But I
And
think
I
these
think,
conversations are so important for people to hear because I don't think a lot of stylists think like that. Like, we can
yeah,
get greedy or, I see my figures coming in every week and I'm bringing in $4,000 a week and my paycheck's $800. Where's the math in that? But I guess when you do
yeah,
expand that onto a yearly
yeah,
salary and a yearly revenue, you have to be aware. But I think a lot of hairstylists either don't know the numbers and don't know that. I think that's something that's always been annoying for employers of myself, that I
yeah,
like that. I need to see those numbers to be motivated and to
yeah,
understand, like, oh, like that's where this times 3.5 or whatever is going.
yeah. And I mean, that 3.5 number is a very general
Yeah.
average that the industry uses, right? You don't have to adhere to that number. We like to use a variation of that number.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me, if someone says, okay, I'm getting paid $60,000, but I want to be paid $75,000, and I can look at their figures and be like, okay, you're bringing in $4,000 a week. I need that to increase to $5,000 a week consistently for 2 months, and then I will give you what you want.
Yeah.
So if someone comes to me and they want that, but their figures don't speak that, then I will give them a plan on how they can get what they want.
Cool. Which I think
Then
you
they
need
make
to
a decision
have,
from
because
there.
if you don't have somebody telling you how to get there, how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, I mean, I have different managers and stuff, like a COO right now and stuff like that. And that's something I had to like kind of like teach them. I'm like, okay, you need to put yourself in their shoes. They're earning like a relatively average salary right now, and they're
Yeah.
asking for an increase because they believe they deserve it. And we should believe they deserve it too. But if their figures don't say that, then we need to give them a plan to get there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you just say no, they will leave and they
Yeah.
will go somewhere else. It's that
How do you
simple.
find that with having such a large salon? I think something that the hair industry is kind of known for, and you hear a lot of clients be like, "Oh my God, there's always new people in here." Like, how do you how do you find that with staff and keeping staff and
Yeah.
losing staff and
Yeah. I would say that, okay, in the last 3 months, I've never lost more staff ever. Like I've lost, I think, 10 people in 3 months.
wow.
And usually my turnover rate, it sits at 8%. So very, very low. And that's down to a little bit of mismanagement from some people in my business.
Okay.
And us not giving people a clear career path. So we take responsibility for that. But it is really hard to not take it personally, especially when you've trained them, you've invested in them. But at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to work for you, they just don't want to work for you. There's nothing wrong with that. And the positive to that is it gives other stylists the opportunity to step up. So I really, really try and make myself focus on the newer people being able to step up, because they could be better.
Yeah.
They probably are. So why would I not want to focus on that rather than all my energy into those who have left?
Yeah. I think something that I've heard from you and from people who I know who have worked for you and do or don't now work for you is that you have said that you celebrate people moving on and opening their own salon or things like that. And it's something that I find so hard to understand when it's not you just leaving to go work at the salon next door. How that
Yeah.
isn't, how are you then like blocked and deleted and, all these things like, I think that that's something that stuck with me, that I have heard from you, that you have been okay in those moments.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have had moments where I've not been okay with
Yeah.
it. Especially if I feel disrespected, I like turn on people if I feel disrespected. But for example, Natalie, she opened her own salon in Melbourne, and she was with us for like 5 years. Incredible colorist, like couldn't speak more highly of her. And she was just so respectful of how she did it. She's
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go open my own salon. It's not near yours. Like, I just want to say how thankful I am for you teaching me everything. Went to her salon last week and to say hello.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
beautiful, that relationship to be able to have, because at the end of
yeah,
the day, you were that person. You wanted to have your own dreams. I can't help it that I have visions that I don't want to work for you forever. Sorry,
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like business owners need to realize that was them.
Yeah.
That was me. I
Yeah.
left employment of someone to go and do my own thing.
Yeah.
Um, But like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, there have been times where I have reacted in a probably not okay way towards people who have left for various reasons.
Yeah.
But I do my best to try and celebrate, because if they're leaving to go and do their own thing because of what you have taught them, you have done your job.
Yeah.
And you have done it well. So you should celebrate that for you and them.
What's the next thing for you? Like, obviously it's hard in these times to see the light at the end of the tunnel maybe, but do you have something that, you know, is there still all these wheels turning of ideas and what's next and where to go? When does it stop?
Yeah. It doesn't stop. My head is constantly going. So I'm opening up a brand new blow dry bar, a new brand called Blow by Edwards+Co. It's spelled BLOE. And the first one will be in Byron Bay. So we just signed the lease. I'm doing that in partnership with one of my stylists from the Byron Bay Salon.
Cool.
So she came to me and was like, I'm bored. Like, I need something else. And I was like, let's open a blow dry bar and let's franchise it. Let's make it big. So the first one will be in Byron Bay. The second one will be in Brisbane. So we'll focus on Queensland first. And then we'll spread to the other states. And then I'm also like the booth rent salon. That's something that's in the pipelines.
Yeah.
I can't use my own money for that, and I can't get finance for that. So it'll have to be investors, because it's like much bigger scale.
Okay.
I'm waiting on those investors to come back to me to whether or not they are able to do it.
And that's just people you reach out to in your circle of people that you know, and that's how those things happen.
And then like another one of my employees, I won't say who that is yet because he hasn't told anyone, but he's asked to go in partnership with a business venture. So he will I'm going to open 2 more salons, definitely with this year. It'll be in Melbourne, in like South Yarra, around there, or Cremorne. Cremorne's my favorite suburb in Melbourne. I love it there.
Oh, cool.
And then Perth. We will 100% do Perth this year. So that's really exciting. I'm so excited to do Perth, because I just know that like I'll have so many staff there, and there's the talent that comes out of Perth.
Perth is outrageous.
Yeah.
Outrageous. Talent, like, every time I find somebody, I'm like, oh fuck, I love this or whatever. Like, I'm like, oh, Perth, everybody is over there who's so good. What's happening? Something's in the water besides the sharks over there.
And then just expanding the products. So I've got 3 more products coming in October: the Invisible Hydration Shampoo, Conditioner, and Mask. Oh God, and then after that, I've got 3 more styling products.
Love it. Well, I just like really appreciate you giving me the time, one, but also like you've really inspired me and kept me going and changed the way that I think about, you know, my potential and what I can do. And fuck, if he can do it, we can do it. Like you really, and I think it is something to note that you don't always have people who are always cheering you on, and that you're doing it and you're doing a really good job, and it's really inspiring a lot of us. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries. Any final thoughts? Anything last minute that you want to spit out?
I think we covered so much.
I know.
And I think I think the best thing about these is people always still wonder, you know, and if you are wondering, just reach out to me and ask me rather than assume, because assuming that I do something or that I am some type of person won't help you. So if you are wondering, just send me a DM. Yeah. I'm always open to talking.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing it with me on a Sunday. I really appreciate it, and I'm grateful that we've had the opportunity to finally do this. Sometimes I'm like, people must think I'm so annoying because I just DM and DM and DM, and then I send an email, and then I send another DM, and then I send an email.
I do the same
till I get you guys. Love it. Well, thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Melbourne stay.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of The Successful Stylist Unfoiled. If you made it this far, I hope that it means you enjoyed the episode. If you did, the most helpful thing you can do is leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's greatly appreciated, and I hope that you'll join me next week on The Successful Stylist Unfoiled.